going to talk about?
We're just going to talk about your early starts in water polo.
Okay.
Right. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Mr. HOAD, you've had a long career in water polo, but it started swimming here, didn't it?
Well, in the early days, all swimming in Western Australia, there were no pools of any nature, and the first Olympic pool in Western Australia was built for the Commonwealth Games, the BT Park. There are now many pools, and we've got our own pool here. We began in the river, and everyone who swam in Melville Swimming Club also played water polo, particularly after the post-war period when a lot of good footballers and people who'd been in the Navy and that came back and started up water polo in Western Australia.
Now, each of us are inspired by different things. I mean, you've been part of my dream around water polo and Olympics, but for you, was there someone who inspired you or spoke to you in your early years?
Well, I had good mentors, the Campbell brothers, Ron Day. They were good swimmers and played water polo. And the change in my thinking was after the Olympic Games in 1956, when after the invasion of Budapest by the Russians, many Eastern Bloc country water polo athletes stayed after the Melbourne Olympics, one of whom was the great Hungarian dual gold medalist Anton Bolvari. And our club then had the foresight to bring him over to be our coach in the year 1959. We were a backwater until then. Victoria and New South Wales had been playing water polo competitively for 40 years just against each other, and Western Australia had no idea. And bringing over the Hungarian gold medalist as our coach here in the old Bicton Baths was the start of showing me what could be achieved. And that year we won the first time ever the national championships at Crawley Baths with 5,000 spectators and back and front page, which you can still get it from the West Australian newspaper. So that was the beginning, and I later went and lived in Hungary, and in 1962 came back and we coached as a playing coach, which I certainly do not believe in any shape, way or matter of form that is a good solution, but it was a solution brought about by the fact that Bolvari went back to Hungary because he couldn't survive. He was a professional in Hungary and there was no money in water polo, and this country still isn't. And I went to Hungary, came back, and then coached Western Australia to their first national title with all pure West Australian young boys in it. And we got 5 into the 1964 Olympic team, which went to Tokyo, and then gradually built up over many years.
Yeah, look, that's incredible. And that European knowledge, we spoke to one of your guys that went to school, and you came back with so much knowledge about water polo, and of course many of our current athletes then in the Australian team still have to go to Europe. But what was the knowledge you felt like in that early 60s?
Well, the huge advantage, people often ask me, how is it that Hungary, well, let me stop first. Australia is one of the greatest swimming nations on earth. In relative to population, perhaps the greatest. We've produced Olympic champions, still are producing them. And people say, why are we not so good in water polo? The difference is, water polo began in Hungary. They are on the whole of Hungary and Budapest, and many other Eastern Bloc countries are on thermal water. And in Budapest in particular, they had indoor swimming pools in 1924. Made it thermally heated all the year round. So they trained 12 months of the year in pools with concrete walls where they threw the ball. and they've won, I think, 11 gold medals out of how many, I'm not sure, 18 or something in its history of the Olympic Games. Water polo was the first sport in the Olympic Games.
As a team?
The first team sport, and Hungary has been the traditional great power. Yeah, and now you've got Serbia and Croatia, Italy also, but Hungary had the huge advantage, and all modern techniques came from Hungary because they had been training indoors 12 months of the year since 1924. Huge advantage.
Now, leading on, you've been to many Olympics. When you were a player coach as well, that space...
I was never a player coach at the Olympics.
But as a player, you went to 4.
Went to 4 as a player, and I coached at 4.
Correct, of course. But now, the difference being over those, that's a lot of time, that's 40 years of coaching and being at an Olympic Games. What do you see the difference in the Olympics over that time?
Well, the difference is we still haven't achieved the ultimate goal of a medal, and the difficulty is
in men we have.
In women we have. In the initial one in 2000, they won the gold medal, which was fabulous, before 18,000 people in a brilliant game. But they're still now, they're ranked 4th, 5th, 6th, and the men are even lower now. We got up to 4th in my time, and we've regressed a little bit. We're not professional still. No one can earn a living from water polo in this country, and in all the European countries now they're full professional. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. We have other huge problems in terms of attracting young kids. Swimming is a hard sport, requires a lot of dedication, getting up every morning at 5:30 to go do swimming training and then water polo in the evening. And football, for example, with its huge popularity and huge following, a lot of athletes who are both good footballers and good water polo players, when it comes to make the choice at 14 or 15 what they're going to do, they concentrate on their football because the rewards are huge if they succeed. And I've had many players who were very good water polo players who opted for football, didn't make it at football, but because they put 6 or 7 years of hard work into it, didn't make it at water polo because they stopped playing it. So that's one of the problems. The other problem is that most pools in this country, except our own pool here at Bigton, are owned by councils, and councils invariably don't let water polo into the pools until about 7 o'clock at night after all the swimmers have gone, and that's a huge disadvantage to get young kids to train hard enough, because the parents don't like the idea, and I understand, don't like the idea of them training at 7 o'clock at night instead of doing their homework.
Yeah, 100% on that crunch time with the AFL being an overload in attracting those talented athletes, and this is always a competition around talented sport identification and institute. We do have an incredible program that has been followed by the world, and we're sort of with the Australian Institute of Sport and identification of athletes through different sports. But I think really that's the hard point, is trying to keep people realising that, as a teenager, there's lots of options, isn't there?
Lots of options, not only for sport, but socially these days. The number of people who travel overseas on school holidays and go skiing in Japan or what have you with a family, that's increased dramatically. And in my time, the school holidays, you swam or played cricket or did something. No one thought of ever going overseas. I thought you needed a passport to go to Rottnest Island. So, things have changed socially, financially, and the parents expect more. And the minor sports, and we're a minor sport, even though we're a world sport. We've got 200 countries that play it, but not in big numbers in some of the... It's still mainly a European sport. America has surged through, but they've got all their national players playing in Europe. Yeah. None playing in USA because it's not professional. It's big in the colleges, universities, and once they graduate 23, 24, there are no clubs, a competition like we've got here.
Exactly. In the USA, it's a collegiate system, and then playing within Europe.
Yes.
And the leagues over there. And you know, just still trying to, I know when I was coaching and I was mentored definitely with you through my years, I was always encouraging my athletes and saying, hey, you'll get a trip to Europe, you'll travel. And you know, you brought with the World Championships, I've mentioned this with Damien Kelly, the 1991, and then you had to take the reins on the 98 World Championships in Perth. That's bringing athletes and that taste of world international sport and water polo here to Perth. Now that really encouraged huge.
They were also important because from it came the building of HBF Stadium, which I was involved in it, and with it enough pools to run a World Championships. They were donated by the federal government through Graham Edwards, and in 1998 we got a water polo pool which is still being used at Beatty Park. So you know, that was a big innovation that was advantageous to our sport because without the facilities, and WACE was founded and we were part of WACE because we're an Olympic sport. So there were legacies from both World Swimming Championships that were very positive for our sport. But since then it's got harder. Football wasn't the 12 months of the year sport. Young kids now at the school that I coach at, they go to Dockers training, East Fremantle training in the summer months, whereas in my day football finished I played footy myself at school. Footy finished at the end of the winter season and you did your summer sport, whether it be cricket or water polo or swimming. And it's now, both sports have become 12 months of the year. If you want to succeed in water polo, you can't succeed just playing 6 months of the year when the rest of the world is doing 12. And particularly with young kids, they have to do that. And football and other sports are big competitors for it. Rugby in the eastern states, soccer now is a huge growth sport, and it's making inroads also into Australian football. And I think in a few years it will be a big sport in this country.
Absolutely, and of course that's been incredible with the Matildas doing so well. In the sense of creating an underground of people watching and connecting to a sport and a women's sport, and that in itself is fantastic, as our women did well in Sydney 2000, as we've mentioned. But just trying to encourage that understanding. Now, from European perspective, you've travelled many times, and how often do they train, and what's the training like for them?
Well, they've got the pools. If I can sit down.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
They've got the pools, Andrew, and consequently with the pools, they've got professional coaches. The young kids are encouraged. They have professional clubs. The clubs are much better organised. There isn't Sydney University is about the closest club in this country to being able to compete on equal footing with the European clubs, and it is making progress despite not having its own pool. It's got the university pool in Sydney, but they don't have sole use of it. So they have managed to find a lot of school pools in Sydney. They're doing, I think, from what I hear, with the younger generation, the sort of equivalent work that the Europeans are doing. But we need more than one club. We need many others. And our club, it's a big social sport, water polo. A lot of old people play it, play in masters competitions and that, but I think we need to concentrate on our youth and particularly our younger kids. In Europe, they're starting 8 and 9 with throwing the skills as we do in cricket and in footy, and we don't do it in this country in water polo, which is a mistake. All skill acquisition is best acquired pre-puberty.
True.
And the longer you delay that, if you start at 12 or 13, it's still too late. So anyone who's trained from their 8, they've got 5 years up on all our people who start at 13, and some don't even start then properly. They may do swimming beforehand, but they don't start with the ball skills.
We do have a lot of people interested in flipper ball, but that requires good coaching all the way through, and there's a lot of miscommunications on the coaching from the top down, would you say?
No, I think it's more that flipper ball is a bit social, and I'd be more interested if they were coached not by parents who enjoy it, and I would think I'd like to see them chosen and coached and done and given special skill acquisition trainings and that, but it's a matter of getting the pool space to do it. That's the huge problem. Even with our own pool, we've got under 12 boys and girls, under 14 boys and girls, under 16 boys and girls, under 18 boys and girls, seniors and masters, and everybody knows the maths don't work. You just can't fit 5 training sessions a week for all those teams. It's mission impossible. And so that's one of the drawbacks that we haven't yet overcome. We need extra pools at our disposal.
Talking about a pool, the ocean pool up in Ocean Reef, is that right?
No, well, there's going to be one, and it's made for water polo. It'll be very interesting. I don't know when its completion date is, but I'm aware of it happening. And I mean, in Sydney, that was the Bondi pool, and another pool at Bronte. They were the first ocean pools where water polo was played in Sydney before going into other Rushcutters Bay, before they had Olympic pools built.
Fantastic. And Europe, it's quite a thing having pools in the ocean and different places. I've never seen them, but I've heard about them.
In Croatia, the whole of the Croatian coast is littered with pools for water polo, but the difference between the Adriatic and our Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean coastline is there can be storms, huge surf, and the gulls would get washed ashore in the first night. So the Adriatic basin and the Mediterranean is comparative. Whilst they do occasionally have storms, the gulls certainly don't get, they might get blown over overnight, but they don't get wrecked, whereas they wouldn't last, 2 days in Cottesloe Beach.
True that, Tom. Now, yourself, you've swum in this river, we've got it behind us. I always remember the story of you doing a big 2-kilometre or 4-kilometre butterfly swim, was that right?
It was a 5-kilometre swim through Perth but that was for a bet which the person who bet me never paid up on, because he said I stopped when I swallowed a mouthful of jellyfish and Swan River water, and I remember it vividly.
Well, Tom, I know that was one of the most inspiring stories I always heard around you, was the 5K swim in the river butterfly, and myself, one of the times I love in the river is swimming butterfly along here for a K or two. It does strengthen you up, and the river does make you strong, but we've had different things happen over the years, and now we have the pool here, as you mentioned, is really important. And I think, getting schools involved in the right idea of how fun and social and how good water polo can be for athletes.
Yes, it's a huge sport in Europe, and we can make it, but it requires a lot of work, and we're not there yet.
Well, Tom, thank you very much for being on Active Aqua Sports here and talking about a passionate sport for yourself. Well, one of the things being FINA controlled, rules always shift and change. I know you really encourage the fast-paced changes with the clock and some of the rules. In that, Tom, do you think there's a progression still to come in the rules within water polo?
I think so. I've long believed that one of the problems with the sport from a television perspective, there's too many referees' whistles, and a lot of, because it's the game, a lot of it is not seen because it's underwater. It's very difficult to referee. I think we have to go away very similar to basketball, where 5 fouls, the player is out of the pool, and if we can because basketball's got a huge following all around the world, is easy to understand, whereas our sport is not that easy to understand for the uninitiated. And I believe there is still room for further rule changes to make it closer to soccer and basketball, to become a world sport.
Truly, thank you for connecting us on the internet to the world of water polo, and we've got the Olympics 2024 Paris, but you've got a young tribe of young players, young athletes who are doing really well, your juniors.
We will see how well they will do, how long they stick at it, but I'm training them, but still not enough, but 3 or 4 times a week is all I can get. But there's a chance, and it's a big sport in our Public Schools Association in Western Australia. It's a summer sport, and there's quite good competition, and a lot of the advantage of playing it there, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, is they have got their Hale School, Christchurch have got state-of-the-art pools, and most other public schools have got private pools, and that's a big advantage. And the same is developing in the eastern states also. But we're at the forefront of public school sport, so that's good that water polo's in there.
Fantastic, Tom. Again, thank you, and your
My
legacy
pleasure.
will keep going, and stories to be told, as they say, and thank you very much for being part of this, Tom.
Pleasure.
Russell McKinnon, wow, the man of water polo in media. You've been involved in that space for a long, long time. Where did you first learn about water polo, and who introduced it to you?
Well, it came from my brother. You know, he dragged me along to the pool, and I was about a 10-year-old when I started playing water polo, and I was in the swimming club, and that's what all my mates were doing, and it took me not too long. By the time I was 13, I was in the senior team and playing provincial championships and stuff, and then it just went from there. So it's been a long haul.
That being provincial means another place than WA, eh?
Well, in my case, it was New Zealand because, playing for Wanganui, North Island Championships 1968, so we do go back a little bit far there. And, 68 I played my first national schools championships as well. And it just went on and on, being a tall fella, fairly fast in the water, skinny as hell though, you know, it sort of made a bit of a difference, but I was useful and just carried on.
Well, you know, talking about useful things, your media arm of letting the world know about water polo, that's been important for you and for Australian water polo. How did that become your thing?
Well, okay, way back when I was in New Zealand, I was a national publicity officer there, and I was writing for magazines in Europe. And when I came over here and then went to the 96 Olympics, I was asked to, by the man who did the magazines, I finally met him, he was from Italy, and he said I should join us on the FINA Press Commission, and so I got the invite onto that in 1998. And been on that right up until that committee was disbanded in December last year, but I've been, the last 3 years I've been on contract to World Aquatics to supply their media, and I've been very lucky to be able to get around all parts of the world, and World Championships, Olympic Games and all that, so and heading off to Doha in February to my, the 15th World Championships. So
that is a history, and you're connected to a couple of points with the Olympics and the World Championships. Both on this point, Tom HOAD was a massive influence, and he's been a massive influence in water polo across the world. How do you see it?
Oh no, I think he's so influential. It's incredible. You know, one of the greatest sportsmen to come out of Western Australia in any sport. And I was lucky enough to be exposed to him very early on. I remember going to the Olympics with him in 1996, and we were in there. I learned a lot from him then, and that was my first Olympics that I went to. And as a journalist, and learning from him, and right through the year, you know, the humbleness of the man who could go out at the age he is today and coach under 12s, under 14s, and that's where he's brilliant at any level, but he wants to make sure that the young kids of today are armed with the right sort of weapons to go forward, and no, he does that amazingly, and gives up so much time. It's unbelievable.
That knowledge, that brain, that ability to see the plays in the years to come, where the future of the sport will go. That's what he does well, doesn't he?
Well, he's touched on just so many people right through history, you know, from the 60s onwards, you know, because he's been there since the Olympics in 1960, and then he coached, not only played in those, or attended those 4 Olympic Games, and then, you know, coached the next 4, and just so many people have come under his influence, and he's well respected worldwide. I've seen that in many parts of the world, you know. Tom walks on water, and it's all over the world.
Well, on that point, I think he'd love to see Australia really grow and again to become more of a power within water polo. We did well around the 2000s Olympics. We've got 2032. Where do you see yourself? You've been a referee, you've been media, you know, and been around the sport for a while in water polo. Where do you see it shifting? What will make Australia again feel good in water polo?
It's really from the youth, you know. We need to bring the youth like this level that we've just seen here at the 19s championships in Perth. You know, there are kids there with talent, kids there who are playing with fervour, speed, agility, with skills, and you can see they're pretty raw talent, and if that raw talent is refined, then they're going to come forward. You know, their kids who in 2032 could be filling the Sharks team, and as the Melbourne girls, you know, at those nationals could be filling the Stingers, and basically these are the people we've got to keep nurturing all the time. Bring the youngsters on. The cream will rise to the top, but the big thing, develop the youngsters, develop them stronger so that they stick around for a lifetime like some of us have.
Well, it is a sport you can play all your life, as long as you know there's masters, there's competitions everywhere, and the thing around it is look after yourself, play smart.
That's it, and hey, it's fun for life. You meet friends around the world, and every time you go to pool, it's just like coming home to family.
Exactly, Russell McKinnon, thank you for being part of this documentary on Tom HOAD. I'm Andrew, and welcome to everyone around the world, international sport.
Thank you.
Your full name?
My name is Colin Webb. I'm the chair of Water Polo WA Masters.
Fantastic, Colin. What have we got here? Let's spin around a bit and have a look at it.
So this is our Tuesday night competition, and this doesn't have the numbers at the moment that we normally have. There's been, because 3 teams went to Japan for the World Masters Championship, and came back with 3 silver medals. Some of those guys have just taken a bit of time off. They're going to start after Melbourne Cup Day.
That makes sense. But look, I've been up here on a Tuesday, and it's a great competition.
Yeah.
You have guys that have come back, played a bit, not played, and some that have been playing for 50 years or more.
Well, that's me. You know, people ask me, you know, how long have I been playing? And I started when I was 13, and I'm 63. So.
That's the space, yeah. Now, look, this documentary, YouTube internet place, is around Tom HOAD. What does he mean to you, and where did you first
meet him? Tom, like many people in WA water polo, Tom has always been there. I first became aware of Tom when I was at, I don't know, 6, I think, growing up in Meekatharra. And after the 62 Empire Games, they built a whole lot of pools around the state. And in Meekatharra we got one, and they, after the 64 Olympics in Mexico, Tom and a diver and a swimmer did a tour of WA where they showed their skills. And they were sort of billeted with various people in town, and there was a newspaper writer and a photographer that came along. So yeah, that's my first interaction with Tom, and I remember seeing, having a photo of him leaving the Meekatharra airport.
Look, for people that don't really know, this is the internet, and there's people all over the world. Tom HOAD is absolutely a figure that has shifted and changed water polo across the world, hasn't he?
To a certain extent, Tom would be regarded, well, actually not necessarily to a certain extent, but to all extents and purposes, Tom is the godfather, the father of water polo in this country. He spent a number of years living and working and playing in Hungary as a young man before it was fashionable. And so he got a lot of contacts with when he was there. He was only young, and then he brought them back, and then he brought players from Hungary to WA, and eventually, I think it was after the '56 Olympics, there was a whole lot of Hungarians who overstayed their Olympic visas and became Australian citizens. Some after that, but there was a connection between Tom and these people.
Connection to Europe really made the pathway going forward to the 91 World Championships, the 98 World Championships, and allowing Australian water polo to flourish in some way.
To a certain extent, and it's always, it's a bit like Perth. Perth is the most isolated city in the world, populated city in the world, and water polo being a small sport on the world stage. The tyranny of distance for water polo is that if you want to get better, you've got to go to Europe, and that's really the only way, either as an individual or as teams. And so it's that tyranny of distance, and you've got to go there, and you've got to keep going there to learn your trade, so to speak. And that's why we've got most of the Australian team currently playing in various places in Europe.
Exactly, Colin. And also, that's why it was important, especially the 98 World Championships, to lead into Sydney 2000. And Tom's effort around that nearly broke him. I know it was hard. There's a lot of work for him.
Well, Tom ran the 92.
Oh, it's 92.
Well, sorry, it was 91. 91, it was 91. January 91. So Tom ran that. He organised that, and then I can't remember who wasn't able to do it in 98, but Tom immediately put his hand and said, we'll do it in Perth. And so that's why we got it back.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now a little bit about yourself. You played all around Australia, literally, haven't you?
Yeah, I've played. So I played as a junior here. Tom was one of my junior coaches. He was my state junior coach before I got into the state junior team. So he went from coaching the under-18s junior team in '76 to a guy by the name of Bill McAtee, who was an Australian player. He coached us in '77. We didn't do all that well because it was a rebuilding team. However, we did have the likes of Richard Pengelly, Martin Callaghan, Danny Riccici, the Zimbulis boys. We had a pretty good team, and some of those played A grade here for many years and played state as well. But yeah, Richard and Marty, they were the standouts.
Of course, that is great to be around that, and I think that's what we're missing a little bit here now is because players have to go to Europe, the top players, we don't get that juniors really experiencing being around the top players all the time.
No, and they don't get to interact with them, so they don't get to actually speak with them or see them play or see them train. So that's important as well. So if you can't see it, then you can't be it.
And it's that dream of being an Australian Olympian or Australian representative that makes water polo unique, isn't it?
Well, I mean, all Olympic sports, team sports, have got that same uniqueness. But yeah, for water polo especially, it's just we're such a small team, and we're so heavily constrained by the number of swimming pools that are available. So we're playing here on a Tuesday night from 7 till 9, and you may not know this, but this, as far as we can figure out, this is the largest group of masters over 45 playing anywhere in the world on a regular basis, and by regular I mean every week.
True,
during summer.
My question, you've got a project that you've been really working with the Australian WA government. Let me know about that, please.
Yeah, so
Tom.
The West Australian government decided they were going to enlarge a marina up at in the northern suburbs at Ocean Reef, and I went along to an open day at my local Sea Sports Club, and I went there with for one reason only, and that was to talk to anyone and everyone about putting an ocean pool into this marina. If you're going to build a marina, you may as well have something where people can go and do laps, because strangely people want to do laps, whether it be in the ocean or in.
Not the classic example of a sea pool.
Sorry?
Bondi.
Yeah, Bondi, Des Moines. You know, there's a whole bunch of those types
and
of pools.
we've actually played water polo in those.
Of course,
venues.
yeah. So the reason for me to be involved, and I involved Tom simply because he's seen more ocean pools than just about anyone else in this country. So if anyone was going to be involved in the design of it, then he would be in the world. So he's got to be in the conversation, and so that's what I did. I took him along to a couple of meetings with Development WA, and we finally got agreement, and the Premier announced that the ocean pool, the first ocean pool on the west coast, was going to be built, and now we're just waiting for it to happen.
Well done, Colin. Now, you recently came from Europe. What's the feeling now, because water polo is a major sport? Explain to people who have no idea that it's a real professional sport in Europe.
Yeah, it's not as professional or as popular as soccer or football, as known there. But water polo is certainly up there. It's up there with handball. It's up there with badminton and those sorts of sports. So the smaller sports, but lots of people play. So there's countries like Spain and Germany, Croatia, Serbia, Hungary, Italy, Greece. You know, they're all mainstay countries now in water polo. And they all play a slightly different thing, although the Croatians, the Serbs, the Hungarians and the Greeks, they're all big people, and then the Spanish are smaller people, and so they play a slightly different game. Tom, going back to Tom, he was the first one to tell me about Manuel Estiades, who is, I think, 6-time Olympian as a player. It's just unheard of.
Yeah, and the joy and glory around water polo is you can play it most of your life if you look after yourself.
Well, that's what we say, right? You can play water from the cradle to the grave. Quite literally. Not a lot of people, we have had deaths at the World Championships, World Masters Championships, where they've dived in the water and haven't come out.
And I'd say they've enjoyed that moment.
I'm sorry?
I'd say they've enjoyed that moment.
I'm the last one that died, and he died in South Korea. His wife was in the stand, and while she was upset, she wasn't absolutely upset. He was a former astronaut, worked for NASA for many years, and he died doing exactly what he loved doing.
Well, that is what the love of the game is about, and in Australia, AFL, they talk about the love of the game, and you've got the ball in your hand. It's a small one, it's a junior ball, but it's from...
No, this is a normal size ball, I'm just big.
Perfect, Colin. Look, thank you very much for speaking to me on Active Aqua Sports, Olympic-sized fun for everyone. And this documentary with Tom, I'll get a few more interviews and appreciate that, which is this sport.
Meanwhile, you can watch the older blokes play.
Thank you.